The last part of topic 5B is we will be looking at fertilizers and eutrophication. So the issue here is that nutrients are always lost when crops are harvested. We know crops take in minerals from the soil as they grow and they use them to build their own tissue. When crops are harvested, they're removed from the field and where they're grown, and rather than them being allowed to just die and decompose there, they're removed. So this means that any mineral ions that they contain, so those phosphates and nitrates that we've just spoken about, are not returned to the soil by decomposers in the nitrogen or phosphorus cycles. So phosphates and nitrates are also lost from the system as well when animals or animal products are removed from the land. So animals eat grass and other plants take in the nutrients. So when they are taken elsewhere for slaughter or transferred to a different field, the nutrients again aren't replaced through the remains or waste products. So one way around this is fertilizers. Fertilizers are added to soils to replace lost nutrients. Adding fertilizers replaces lost minerals, so more energy from the ecosystem can be used for growth. This increases the efficiency of energy transfer, and fertilizers can be artificial or natural. Artificial fertilizers are inorganic and they contain pure chemicals such as ammonium nitrate, and they come in the form as powders or pellets. Natural fertilizers are organic matter and they include manure, composted vegetables, crop residues, and the parts left over after harvest and sewage sludge. However, using fertilizers raises a lot of environmental issues. Sometimes more fertilizer is applied than the plants need, or that they're actually able to use at a particular time. And this can lead to the fertilizers leaching into waterways. And leaching is when water-soluble compounds in the soil are washed away by rain or irrigation systems, and they're often washed into nearby ponds or rivers. And this can lead to eutrophication, which we'll look at in a moment. And leaching is more likely to occur if the fertilizer is applied just before heavy rainfall. So it's really important for farmers looking at what the weather will be like before they put any fertilizers down. So inorganic ions in chemical fertilizers are relatively soluble. And what this actually means is that any excess minerals that aren't used immediately are more likely to leach into waterways. In natural fertilizers, the nitrogen and phosphorus are still contained in organic molecules that need to be decomposed by microorganisms before they can then become absorbed by plants. And so what this means is that their release into the soil for uptake by plants is more controlled and leaching is less likely. So the leaching of phosphate is less likely than the leaching of nitrates because phosphates are less soluble in water. And using fertilizers also changes the balance of nutrients in the soil. Too much of a particular nutrient can cause crops and other plants to die. So eutrophication, we're just going to go through that now. So what happens in eutrophication is we start off with mineral ions are leached. And these mineral ions are leached from fertilized fields. So we've got mineral ions here, and these are being leached. And they are leached from fields, fertilized fields, and that stimulate the rapid growth. And this stimulates the rapid growth of algae in ponds and rivers. And so now we've got this increased amount of algae in ponds and rivers. This layer of algae actually blocks the light. This layer of algae blocks the light, and it blocks the light from reaching any of these plants below this layer of algae. And what happens then is these plants below that layer of algae actually are going to die because they aren't able to photosynthesize. What then happens is bacteria feeds on the dead plant material, and the increased numbers of bacteria reduce the oxygen concentration. So that causes our O2 concentration to go down. And that's because all these bacteria are carrying out anaerobic respiration. Because of this reduction in oxygen, Fish and other aquatic organisms are going to die because there is not enough dissolved oxygen. So there's not enough O2. And that's basically what eutrophication is. So finally, to finish up, we're just going to have a quick look at this exam question here. So a study was conducted to investigate the effect on a nearby river of adding fertilizer to farmland. The oxygen and algal content of the river that runs past a field where nitrite fertilizer had been applied was measured at the field and up to a distance of 180 meters away. A similar control river next to an unfertilized field was also studied. The results are shown in the graph below. And you're first asked for 1 mark to explain the purpose of the control river in the study. Control river, all that does is it helps us to determine whether the fertilizer added to the adjacent field that is causing the observed changes is actually causing these changes or if it's a different variable. So it allows us to have that comparison. It allows us to look, is this really a true difference caused by that or not? Then you're asked to calculate the percentage increase in algal content from 0 to 60 meters away from the fertilized field. The percentage change, we want our final value minus our original value. So our final value, 60 meters away, is going to be 95,000. We've got where 60 is, we're up there about 95,000. So it will be 95,000. And our original value, which is 10,000 minus 10,000. And we are then going to divide that all by our original value, which again is 10,000, times that by 100. And that gives us 850%. So that would be for B. Percentage increase in algal content is 850%. Describe the relationship between the algal content of the water and the oxygen content of the water in the river next to the fertilized field. Well, there's a negative correlation. So we've got a negative correlation between the algal content and the oxygen content. And finally, D, explain and suggest an explanation for this. So all I'm going to do here is just talk through what we sort of covered in eutrophication. So that increasing algal content could prevent light from reaching plants below. This causes them to die and be decomposed by bacteria. This increased number of bacteria use up oxygen in the river when carrying out aerobic respiration, resulting in a reduction in dissolved oxygen content. Where algal content is low, there's less dead plants, and oxygen content is high.